Hold on, I'm pressing the record button. Okay. So this is actually going to end up being a podcast, episode 9. So welcome to episode 9 of the Flying Free podcast. And we are also doing this as a video, and we're also live streaming it. So we're doing all kinds of experiments right now at the same time. And the topic for today is strategies for dealing with emotional abuse in the home. So Rachel is going to start us off by telling us some of the strategies that she used. And Rachel, by the way, she's divorced. She's currently divorced. Maybe you can just give a little bit of a history, just very slightly. You don't have to go into too many details. And then tell us what some of the things that you did to kind of, survive.
So I was married for 14 years. And in most of that time, being married was what I wanted. I wanted to have a family. I had dreamed of it. It was, I come from an unhealthy, sort of unstable background. And so I'd always just dreamed of having a partner in life and being one big family unit. And so I was living in a state of denial for most of the period of my marriage. Although I knew that there was something very wrong, it was always that I came back to, I have to do better. This is coming back on me. So honestly, it was like a state of denial, state of numbness. And I would sort of go from hope to hope, different ideas about ways to make things better. So I was subsisting on hope a lot. Like, maybe after our son is grown, things will be better and we can do the traveling I've always dreamed of, and things will be more stable and he won't be so stressed out, and it'll be better in the future. Just always thinking it would be better in the future. And another component was like always thinking that I would be more acceptable to him. Like he would love me the way I needed to be loved in the future if I could fix myself enough to deserve that. So like, losing weight or becoming so successful in my career that he would have no choice but to acknowledge what a wonderful person I am. So I did a lot of coping mechanism strategies that were revolving around that. So living a lot of life in fantasy. So even like that's what that is fantasizing that and hoping that in the future it's going to be better. You're going to finally get what you really want if you just put enough love in, you just have enough sex, you just do enough in order to get that, right? So some of the specific coping mechanisms I had, I was always looking to make myself healthier, like physically healthier. And I am a runner. I love to run. I didn't always run for the right reasons. I'm just now starting to learn how to love because I'm a runner, because I love running, not because I'm looking to get into a certain type of clothing or anything like that. It's sort of revolutionary to me. I've always been a runner, but I've not always, it's always been like, I've never been good enough at it, fast enough, etc. It was never just for the pure joy of running. The pure
joy of running. I'm not a runner, and I can't like joy and running, putting those two things together.
Yeah.
Like my brain's going, what? Okay,
well,
sorry.
There's the endorphins, and actually that was a great stress reliever. It fulfilled a number of functions in my life, some healthy, some unhealthy. And I'm really thankful because it was also a chance to get out of the house in a way that he was supportive of me doing that because he had his own motivations as well, I think. And so I would get out of the house and I would go spend time in nature and run on trails and exercise our dogs. That was a definite way that I survived because things were just it was just hard. So the other thing that I struggle with personally is eating, so emotional eating. And so that was always a big thing. And so I would have trouble go through cycles where I was eating in a way that I wasn't eating unhealthily, and I've always had an issue with sugar. And so wanting to, think, if I could just overcome this, I would be the kind of person that deserves to be, have the kind of healthy and happy marriage that I was longing for. And so, but then I could never attain that. and there was a lot of compulsion, just because of emotional pain. A lot of times you can't, it's not something that you can control from outside influences like a new eating plan. It has to come from being healthy within yourself, fixing the issues that are causing that instead of addressing the symptoms, right? So there is that. And again, just dreaming of a better future. I definitely was looking for validation from work, wanting to be successful at my job, and I'll even get personal validation from the people at work, because they were sort of my community. And that left me definitely vulnerable for sure to people who maybe didn't also have the best of intentions either. But I was such a people pleaser, and I'm definitely working on that. But it is a tough cookie to crack when you have spent your life living in fear that someone's going to be mad at you because your entire existence is based on that person's acceptance in the moment. So those are just a few of them. And then when I couldn't deny that there was pain in my marriage, if I couldn't be numb from it, like, for example, one of the painful things was that we never were able to take family pictures. We didn't have really nice wedding photos, and he really didn't ever want to take nice family photos. And that was something I longed for. And so I'd be over at a friend's house or something, I'd see their beautiful photos of their family, and I would think to myself, like, well, I guess I just don't deserve that kind of thing. Those other people, those other types of women, that's what they get. But this is my choice. I chose to marry him, and this is just my life. And so it was more like I was thinking it was my fault that I had done, I hadn't made a better choice, or I wasn't good enough, and I didn't deserve to be the kind of family that took nice family photos. So living in either denial or blame for myself. And that's just my personal experience. I think that there's probably a wide variety of different ways that women cope in these situations in unhealthy ways, or, maybe not bad, but maybe just neutral. And they're just trying to get by because there's this ongoing problem in their life where that they can't fix, because it's not actually them. It's this other issue.
Right. Well, and they're trying to make sense of it in their heads.
Yeah.
So they
And you
use
can't
these
ever.
different explanations to
Yes.
try to figure it out.
Yep. And
Yeah.
even if it really isn't rational, if it brings you a little bit of comfort in that moment, you're going to cling to that.
Yeah.
If it
It's an
helps you
explanation.
make sense in your mind,
Yep.
because your brains are always trying to put these pieces together.
Yep.
And I think that's what's so devastating when we come to the realization of what's actually been going on, that you'd been building these lies in your life for so long, and then you have to go back and untangle them one by one and realize the truth and bring truth and let God shed his light on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really an important exercise.
Okay. So some women are wired more like you, Rachel, where they are, they just take, it's either, I think some of it has to do with nurture, your upbringing, and some of it has to do with just personality. Everybody's, but all kinds of different personalities can end up in relationships with dysfunctional people.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't matter how strong you are, or how intelligent you are, or if you're a type A, or if you're more laid back. Those kinds of things don't determine whether or not you are going to be more susceptible to getting into a relationship with someone who's got a personality disorder or who is emotionally abusive.
Yeah.
So your personalities, Rachel and I, for those of you who are watching, we're different personalities. And I handled my relationship differently. And I was probably more confrontative, and, more like, wait a minute, this isn't right. You can't do that. That's wrong. You can't treat people like that. And so I was more, not all the time. I did learn how to pick my battles, but I would go into battle if I felt like an issue was big enough. And whenever I did that, then I always got a lot of the proverbial shit that would that would shit the fan, that would hit the fan. I don't know what I can say on Facebook. That would hit the fan, and it would be a bad situation, So,
Yeah.
so, so I was more of a fighter. Okay. I would fight for
Yeah.
what I thought was the truth. And I would try to reason. And I kept trying to come at it. Like if I just come at it at the right angle, maybe
Yeah.
if I had a different tone of voice, maybe if I had a different words, maybe if I picked the right place to say something. And nothing ever worked. It was the same exact response every single time. And
Yeah.
so one of the strategies that I would recommend for people, that I recommend to people that are in this kind of situation, regardless of your personality type, but especially for those of you who are more fighters. And here's the trouble that us fighters get into too, is that we, because we're fighters, we get caught up in this game that these people play, where they poke the bear. Okay. So they poke you and poke you and poke you to get you to get riled up. And if you do, then they sit back and they say, wow, you're really, you've really got an anger problem, and you're really bitter, and you're unforgiving, and what's your problem? Especially if you're in, Christian circles, you'll get a lot of like Bible verses thrown at you, and, that kind of thing. And then that's really easy for us to feel really guilty then, because, well, we did react poorly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we didn't want to. We reacted that's not who we are. That's not how we want to live our lives. That's not how we want to have relationships that are always reactive.
Yeah.
So it's really important to learn how to, in the healing community, we call it gray rock, where you stop engaging with that person. And it's an
Yeah.
important strategy. When they try to poke you, you don't take the bait. Just don't take the bait. Try to keep your conversations very transactional, so that you can keep the emotion at a minimum, and let them have their wins, because they're going to, quote, win anyway. So let them have the win. Be able to walk away and say, now, and was I able to do this very well? No, I wasn't. I'll just be honest. I was not very good at this, but you probably were better at it. I don't know, Rachel, do you feel like you had a
Oh,
chance to practice this at all, or?
no, I really, there were definite times. I was not always, the laid back type of person. The problem is I would get so confused, and I was so focused on being fair and also listening to him, that he would take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And come in, and he's very smart. He would always have some sort of explanation or some sort of rationale for why things were his way. And I was very susceptible to that, because I wanted to listen to him. I wanted to respect what he had to say. And so even if I knew, like, maybe it's not quite right, I could make my mind fit around it. But also, even if I couldn't quite make it work, I just had to let it go, because I was never, ever, ever going to get to the point where he would admit anything from my side.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really tough, because I so wanted to work things out. I so wanted to, you know, I wanted us both to come to reconciliation. And I'm not even talking about at the end, just throughout the course of our marriage. I always wanted to resolve these issues, but nothing ever got resolved.
Mm-hmm.
And as we know, that's one of the classic signs of this type of situation, where you may apologize, but it's not going to do, he's not going to do the same thing for his role, or maybe it'll be really minimal, some of the obvious things, but he won't take deeper responsibility. And also, it's not going to produce any lasting change. So I would just get to the point where I stopped bringing things up, but every day on a daily basis. But when I did, I would really pour my heart into it, like write him a letter or something like that. And then it was the same thing. It would just get ignored, or there would be a very convenient explanation for why things were not my way. So.
Right. Well, I think one of the reasons why we keep trying to get that closure, or trying to get that trying to have a meeting of the minds with this person
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
because at a fundamental level, we truly believe deep down inside that it's a possibility.
Right.
And the fact is, it's not a possibility. So
Yeah.
to come to that place of acceptance where you finally, it took me a lot, it really wasn't until towards the end, you finally accept the fact that there will never be a meeting of the minds. There will
Yeah.
never be closure to all of those hurts that took place or to all of those things that were left undone. There will never be closure. And
Right.
to let that go, it's very, very difficult to let
Yeah.
that go, but that's really important to do. Another strategy for coping then is because their reality is so completely different from your reality, it's really important that your reality is validated somewhere else then. Otherwise, you
Yeah.
start to feel like you're going insane.
Yeah.
And so what I suggest to people is to have at least one person. Can it be a counselor? It can be, but you have to pay money for a counselor, and you have to you only have access to that person, once a week or maybe once every other week or once a month in some cases. And what you really need is you need an ongoing place where you can actually download what's going on in your relationship. And no, this is not called gossip. Okay. So for those of you who are thinking, oh, gossip, I can't do that. No, some of the Christian rules and regs that people hem you in with actually make it almost impossible. They put you into a corner where you
Yeah.
can't get out. You can't get help. You can't get healing because of all these rules and regulations. Those are from the devil. I'm sorry, but they are not from Jesus. So Jesus wants us to be able to have fellowship with somebody that
In truth, to live in truth.
understands. That exactly. He wants us to live in truth. And if we can't live in truth with our partner, then we need to live in truth with someone else.
Yeah.
And so for me, I had a sister who was actually coming into my home and working with me on a daily basis. And she became my sounding board for 3 solid years. She listened to my reality and she was just a really, really good listener. So if there's anyone watching this who maybe isn't in a situation like this, but you'd like to help, this is a great way to help.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
listen and don't judge. Don't judge and don't try to fix. Just listen and acknowledge and validate the other person's reality, because women who are living in a situation like this, they really do start to feel like they are losing their marbles because they're told, they're gaslit all the time. They are lied to on a regular basis. And the lies that they're told are not always outright lies. A lot of them are just that they have information that's withheld from them. So they don't know, they don't have all the pieces and they have to try to figure it out. And then if they get it wrong, they're told that they're making assumptions and they're stupid and they don't know anything. And I mean, it's just absolutely insane, the games that get played with a woman's mind. So that woman needs to have a sane place to land on a regular basis where she can download. So that was one of my strategies that God really used to help me actually get better. And it's think about the grief process too. When you lose someone that you love, what do people who are grieving do? Their biggest thing that they like to do is to talk about it.
Yeah.
They want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And they need to process it. That's how you come to a place of accepting the reality of your situation. Same thing. You're actually grieving when you're trying to process the fact that this person loves you so little that they don't want to connect with you on an intimate basis. They don't want to understand where you're coming from. They have no empathy for your situation. They have no care for the ways that they've hurt you. They don't acknowledge or take responsibility for anything in the relationship, and everything is put squarely on your shoulders. There's a lot of grief and loss involved in that. And you need to grieve. And it takes a long time. This is not something that happens, well, I'm going to talk to a counselor for a few months and then I'll be better. No, it doesn't work like that. It takes years of healing. And I think I mean, I'm out of my relationship and remarried and I'm still healing, you know, and
Oh,
I
yeah,
think I'll be healing the rest of my life.
probably.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
I agree. And
um,
I just want to emphasize what you said. Sit and listen and don't judge and don't fix it. Don't try to fix it.
yeah,
I mean, if there's a direct question or just, I mean, I just can't even tell you the power of someone validating and by listening and empathizing.
yeah,
It is
it's
such, it's
so
like
simple.
balm on a burn. It is such a soothing mechanism for healing. And it's something that women like us have not experienced from the people that really should have been the ones doing it all along,
Yep,
who promised to do
yep,
that when married us. So
yes. Okay. Another thing that I recommend is, well, it's taking care of yourself. So here's the thing. A lot of us took care of this person because, and they had lots of emotional needs and we were responsible for taking care of them. And as Christian women, we felt like that was our number one priority, was to take care of the emotional needs of this other person. Plus, if you were a parent, you also had the emotional needs and the responsibility of parenting your children. And a lot of times you didn't get a lot of help from your partner. Maybe you got some practical help, but when you asked for it, but you didn't get a lot of initiative taking or a lot of help on the emotional burden of parenting. So
yeah.
maybe they were good at, helping the child get dressed in the morning or whatever, if you ask them to help you out, but maybe not so good at getting down on that child's level and really emotionally connecting with that child and building a relationship with that child. And so that all of that emotional connection burden fell on you to do that. And the reason is because if this person's not able to connect with you emotionally and not able to empathize with you, that's because there's something broken inside of them. And of course, they can't do that with anybody.
Yeah,
And
it's like
you
a
don't,
handicap.
right. It's a handicap. You don't see that in their relationships with other people on the outside because you don't have to have intimate relationships with everyone in your life, right? It's just your
Mm-mm.
family members
Right.
that you need to connect. So family members are the ones that see if there's a lack of that. It's going to be the family members that experience that.
And who suffer from it.
Yes, exactly. So what you need to do is start disconnecting or detaching from that person, because your whole life has been revolving around that person. And you need to start revolving your life. The Christian answer would be revolve your life around Jesus. Well, that's kind of a duh. Okay. We can
Yeah,
revolve
it's
our life
fundamental.
around Jesus
Hmm.
regardless of what human beings' life we're revolving around. But what we need to do is we need to start taking responsibility, not for that person, but for ourselves and for our own health. And
Hmm.
this means that we need to start, this is called self-care. And I know that in Christian circles that is like self-care. Oh my word, that's so selfish. No, it's not selfish. It's normal. All right.
Yep.
To not take care of yourself is abnormal. It's abnormal, dysfunctional human behavior to not take care of yourself. It goes against the way God wired all creatures on the face of the earth,
Hmm.
including animals, okay?
Hmm.
But certainly human beings. We are wired to take care of ourselves. It's survival. And we are to take care of our spiritual health, our emotional health, and our physical health. And so some of the ways, so let's talk, Rachel, about some of the ways that you and I and others have found that we can actually take care of these things and get our focus off of, because I remember a time when that's all I could think of was managing this relationship. And when
Yeah.
I started focusing on other interesting things, because you know what? There are 5 billion gazillion interesting things in this world to focus on. That human being that you're living with is just one of them.
Yeah.
The church that you're going to is just one of them. There's all kinds of other things you can focus on. So let's talk about what some of those things are, because some of those things are actually really interesting and they might distract you from all of the dysfunction that's going on in that part of your life. So
That's
Rachel,
interesting because I think one of the things actually I've been working on just the last couple of weeks is really forming my identity as a person. So not filtered through my role as a wife or a mother. It's filtered through who, what's inside of me at the core of my personhood. So my priorities are like, are aligned with my identity and maybe the person that I want to be and the person I'm becoming. So for example, I want to be someone who has a deep and intimate relationship with the Lord. So what is that going to look like in my life? That's going to look like Bible reading. That's going to look like listening to sermons, etc. So that's part of self-care for me, is putting a priority on those things. And my time is so stretched thin that it's easy to let that slip by the wayside. But that's part of who I am. So I can't let that slip. And it actually is a discipline. Self-care is a discipline. Self-care, you can think of it, it's easy when you think of it like, I need sleep. So I'm going to go to bed at 10 o'clock because I care about these things in my life that need me to be active and present, in my mind there, not drifting off into la la land because I only got 5 hours of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So that is self-care. That's not, it could look like, taking a bubble bath or something like that. That's perfectly legitimate, but it's also formed around your values and your identity.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned bubble bath, and I just have to say, when I moved into our new home, we had a bath that was big enough to actually hold me. And I thought, you see movies where the girl is in the bubble bath with a glass of wine and like
Yeah.
a candlelight and stuff. So I thought, I am going to do that. I'm going to experience what that is like. And I did. I've actually done that twice in the last year that I've been here
Do
because
you
I don't
enjoy
have
it?
time
Is
to
it
do it.
relaxing for you?
But you know what? It was really fun. What?
Yeah. Yeah.
But once I was in there, I was like, so now what?
Yes. I like to bring a book or watch a show or
Right,
something.
right. Okay, so some things that I did, one thing that I discovered in my, like when I was still living with my ex and just trying to, actually, no, it was actually when I had separated from him. We were separated for a few years. And I was really grieving and just very in tons of distress. Anyway, I discovered Audible because I was driving my kids all over the place and folding laundry. I was single parenting, and I found that I could distract myself with fiction books. And I had been this Christian woman who had, for the last 20 years, had only been reading nonfiction. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Books about how to be a better wife, for example.
Right. Oh yeah.
Books about how to be a better Christian and how to, and I'm an avid reader. So I read dozens of books, every year I read tons of books, but I started thinking, I used to prior to, getting into this really uber conservative religious circles that I was in, I was an English major and I loved literature, classics. I loved literature. I read avidly as a child as well. And I thought, I'm going to do Audible and listen to books because I don't have a lot of time to read them, but I started listening to some great fiction. And
Yeah.
I found I was learning so much from fiction and not Christian fiction. Okay. I was listening to really good fiction stuff. And so I was learning about just the characters that were developed in these stories were teaching me about, I was recognizing, now that I'm older, I've seen a little bit of life, and I was watching how people reacted, and it was very, very eye-opening just listening to
Yes.
these stories. Plus they were super interesting, and it distracted me from my own life, and I got to get involved in the lives of other people. So Audible, I highly recommend Audible. And then the other lifesaver for me was music. I had, prior to being separated, only listened to Christian music. I'd never listened to secular music, but I discovered that so many secular artists, female artists, were singing songs that were, really strong, powerful songs about some of the same things that I had been through, and I could relate to them. And I started listening. At first I felt really guilty, like, oh my word, am I a good Christian? Am I a bad Christian because I'm listening to secular music? But when I listened to that music, the songs they were talking about, really about truths, about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And had started realizing that all truth in this world belongs to God. It does not belong to the devil. It belongs to God. And that includes truth about relationships, about human nature. The Bible is only one book. It's God's word, but you cannot put the scope of all of the experience of all of history and all of everyone's life into one book, right? So there's some wisdom, and there is the wisdom of the universe is in that book, but also the wisdom of the universe is in nature. Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. The Bible talks about the ant, but guess what? We can learn about God, about principles in God's truth, not just from the ant. There's other animals. If the Bible was to draw analogies between all of the animals in the universe, and that not just the ant, then the Bible alone would be books and books and books long with analogies all about it. Do you see what I'm trying to say here?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So back to the secular music. There are songs that these secular artists are writing. They have a lot of wisdom and insight. Maybe they're not a Christian tradition, but there are definitely things that we can learn. And so I would listen to these songs and I'd be like, yes, this song is articulating everything inside of me that I didn't know how to articulate, but it's saying it in such a powerful way. And so that was very validating, and I would sing at the top of my lungs in the car, and those endorphins, and I would work out on my elliptical and listen to that music in my headphones, and the endorphins were I was starting to have good hormones flowing through my body instead of all this negative, critical, shaming, bad stuff that I was constantly inundated with, and that was also very healing.
So I think there's some validity a lot in the fact that, people have been singing to God as a form of worship for this span of the Bible, right? And it's found all throughout the Bible. It's part of the Christian tradition. Why did God, use that mechanism in order to have people connect with him? I think there's probably some truth to the fact that there's a physical component to that,
yes,
some physical
definitely.
truth to that. So
definitely,
that's really powerful.
Okay, the other thing, and then we should probably wrap this up because we're already over. But the other thing I was going to say is, let's see, I'm looking at my notes here. Okay, so music and stories, a friend to talk to. And the other thing then is the validation of education. So, and you, if you're watching this, it's because you're already out there looking for help and you're educating yourself and you are doing exactly what is going to be most helpful for you. So even in watching this, that's self-care. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there are so many great resources on YouTube. I had, for the very first time, I don't know why I haven't discovered him before, but is it Les Carter? What is his name on YouTube? Hold on. Oh, shoot.
Is he that really nice man?
He's a really nice man. I think his first name is Les. Hold on. I'm going to look it up on my phone and see if I can. Oh, yeah. Here it is. Oh, why can't I see his name? I see his face. He's kind of bald in the front. Oh, I can't see it. It's okay. Here, just look this one up on YouTube. I was just watching this one today and it's so good. Imaginary Confessions of a Narcissist. It's Les. Anyway, if someone here on the Facebook Live knows his name, you can post it.
He's fantastic. Yeah.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
I've watched that video and that was really, really good.
Yes. Yeah. So there are so many people out there. I don't even know who they all are, but I keep finding new ones all the time. I love it.
The information's coming out.
Yeah. And it's free. So there's YouTube. All you have to do is Google your problem and 2,500 YouTube videos. There are people talking about it. It's awesome. Yeah. There's tons of books. There's my book. Is it me making sense of your confusing marriage? I don't really talk about I don't toot my horn too much, but
it's a really good book.
there are like tons of blogs and websites out there, and there are, yeah. So anyway, there's podcasts. This is a podcast. It's going to turn into a pod. I have a podcast called the Flying Free Podcast. If you look on iTunes. And so there's so many different resources out there. And I really think it's important not to just like clamp down on one resource. This is why I share other people's stuff all the time on Facebook, because I think it's important that you are hearing from lots of different advocates, because they all have a different angle and a different perspective. And I think it's, if you're just going to listen to one person all the time, I'm sure those of you who have listened to me for a long time, like you, Rachel, you already know what's going to come out of my mouth before it comes out, right? Because you
always teach me something new.
But who knows what's going to come out of this new guy's mouth that I've never heard before, because I've never heard him before. So, keep availing yourself of all the resources that are out there. And I think we're going to stop there. Do you have anything you want to add before we quit?
So the only thing I wanted to add is, this takes courage to educate yourself, and give yourself credit for that. That's something I've been really terrible about, because one of the dynamics that I was never enough. I just felt like whatever I did, it was never enough. And so give yourself credit for educating yourself and having the courage to dive into these things. Pat yourself on the back. I think it's really important, even if it's just a little thing.
That's an important thing, though. Mm-hmm. I think I've told my Flying Free members, look in the mirror and say, I've got your back. Yeah. Just do that. You are courageous. You are doing everything you can, and you're going to get through this.
Yep.
Okay. I am going to turn off the live Facebook now. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll do this again if it worked. I think it worked. So if it worked, we'll do it again sometime. Okay, let's see. I'm going to stop the live stream. And now I'm going to stop the recording.